we started high school, we heard from my parents, we can finally do something outside of some control. All the different parties and stuff like that, and also all the consumption. Every morning I woke up and I was like, wow, I need to find a way to get high. A way to escape reality. One time in particular it had a gun pointed to my head. I realized, like, what is life about? Why am I here? My name is Makai Albert, and this is my twin brother, Rumi Albert. As you can tell, we look very alike, and that's because I just said we're twins. I think we're very similar in a lot of ways. We do a lot of the same things. But you know, I think we're really not identical. I'm this guy, and you're that guy. Are you sure? I don't know. I think that's you, actually. We were very well known to be kind of naughty as kids. We had a few nicknames. One of them was like Pikachu's, full of energy, and we had a few other ones like Talibans, which sounds really bad nowadays, but like, because our grandpa thought that we were like literal terrorists because we would just go around and make a mess out of everything. Havoc, yeah. One time our friend came over and we had like water guns, like the spray water guns. So we peed in the water guns. And actually we didn't shoot them, but then we just left them there. We left them there for like a month. And then that friend came over and we said, it's time to go. So we just sprayed each other super, super bad. It smelled terrible. Then our mom got home, and then our friend's dad got home, and they were so upset. One of my biggest hobbies was skateboarding. And there tends to be this stereotype that skateboarders tend to do, you know, they like to smoke and drink and kind of get in trouble and stuff like that. I think I was like 11 years old when I had my first cigarette, and then I started smoking marijuana and stuff like that. But to be honest, at 11 years old, I wasn't too much interested. I just didn't really care. Once I went to high school, freshman year of high school, it's not just the social influence, but it was actually something I really wanted to try out for myself. It was actually really bad because I did not care about my schoolwork. I did not care about anything in life other than feeling something with drugs. And I think at that age, I wasn't quite aware of what the consequences could be, you know. Because once you come down from that high, once you come back to reality, it's rather hard, I think. You really face the responsibilities you have to face. You face the choices you have to make. As I started doing more of these things, I started getting involved with very bad groups of people. And there was one time in particular that there was an altercation between people about some event. And I ended up being placed in a position that I had a gun pointed to my head. And, you know, I wasn't really scared at the moment. But yeah, it was that instance in particular that I realized, like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? And from that point on, I sort of started like asking these questions. As we started like searching for these answers in life, we first began with like philosophy, theology, at spiritual leaders, at their works, at karate, at yoga, some tai chi, some qigong. We had a friend who was a friend of our mother, that she always kind of provided these materials. One day, she gifted us a really big box, and it was filled with books. I opened the box, and at the very top, it was the main book of The Practice of Falun Dafa, which is titled Drum Falun. Shortly after, I began reading the book. I remember I told my brother, like, dude, this is very special. I think this is it. I think we should practice these. We should practice Falun Gong. The most fundamental part about the practice is like you have to follow 3 principles, right? Truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. And I remember reading that for the first time.
And it kind of conflicted in my mind because I felt like this is something I want to keep doing, a practice I want to practice, but this is not something I'm actually doing. I'm not actually following these three principles. Like immediately when I thought of myself, the way I treated other people, the way I even treated myself, it was really not compassionate. It really wasn't tolerant in any way. So I realized I had to change myself. And that was actually very difficult because it really meant, you know, being responsible for myself. But really that's what Falun Gong taught me, like, you walk your own path and the decisions you make will really matter. And in my mind I said, okay, well, it is something I want to do. I want to be responsible for myself. And our first time practicing, like the second exercise of Falun Gong, I just felt immense amount of energy. I almost felt like I was like hugging someone and someone was hugging me, but very energetic. I felt happy. And there was no exterior element, you know, providing that happiness. It really came from within. It's known around the world that in April 20th, it's kind of like a big day to smoke and all that. And it was actually, I started practicing Falun Gong and about a month went by, kind of like old time's sake. I still went to hang out with friends, but that's really when I realized how much I had changed in just 1 month of practicing. They were all like smoking around me and I was like, oh, it's so smelly, like I don't want that anymore. It just smells so weird and so bad. So at that moment I was like, how did I do that in the past? I just don't believe it.
After started practicing Falun Dafa, I think a week went by, 2 weeks went by. At some point I realized, oh wow, I haven't had like a drop of alcohol in 2 weeks now. And I haven't done any drugs in like a week now. It was very natural.
One of my friends came over one day. I do remember very clearly that we were out in the wild and I started smoking with him. And I just felt like, it's really hard to explain, but I just felt like I was falling. Even though I was staying still, I just felt like I was really like falling, almost like there was no end to where I was falling. Kind of like when you take a roller coaster, you like go to the top and then you're falling down, like that feeling. I just kept getting that over and over again. And I kind of realized that actually each time I smoked, that kind of represented my actions and where I wanted to go. Because when I smoked, I just went down. And when I stopped smoking, I felt like I was like rising, right? And it really felt like with this spiritual practice of Falun Dafa, it was allowing me to ascend. Really interesting feeling.
So I started elevating myself from within. Everything and everyone around me was happier.
When we used to cook together, we had a restaurant in Mexico. And there was one time where I had just made like some kind of cream, right? It was a very creamy substance. And I don't know what happened, but eventually like I bumped into him or something and I dropped this bottle to the floor and the cream just went splattering everywhere. Like he started kind of laughing, but then I turned around and there was cream all over my face. And I was kind of upset. I was like, it's your fault, right? That was my first thought, like it's your fault. But then eventually, you know, I realized he was laughing, so I was like, maybe it's not too big of a big deal. Yeah, I think if I wasn't practicing Falun Gong, I would have probably like pushed him and be like, dude, it's your fault, you clean it up, right? Now in college, I realized that whatever you do now really has an effect in the future. Not only do I have to be responsible to myself, to my professors, to my family, I feel like the world out there is really expecting young people to come out with abilities, with new ideas, and a way to, you know, save the world almost, like. So I take it seriously. I wake up every day and I think, okay, I need to do really well today in my schoolwork, the best that I can. Not just because I have to, but I actually try to force myself to think that the subject's interesting, right? Like when I was taking math, I was like, I love math, I love math, I love math. I don't know, I think just that mentality, that change of mind, really had a difference.
I think everything has a specific characteristic, a special trait. And that's sort of like the spiritual side people talk about. I think fundamentally we are spiritual beings living a human experience. And I think when you see it that way, I think the purpose for my life at least is to return to that spirituality, to really cultivate that spirituality, truly to being a good person, to being a moral person that emphasizes virtue in his life, to elevate and refine the spiritual character of a person.
We're only here for such a small amount of time, so I think if you are able to truly be beneficial to not only yourself, but like to everyone else, like, and do it as a kind person, compassionately, benevolently, that really is a path to walk, we can say.